Hi, I'm Arnav and I'm posting a video on my YouTube channel after a long time. But I just couldn't resist myself because of what happened last night. Because I'm very emotional right now as Brazil got knocked out of the FIFA World Cup 2026. And although I think that Norway was the more deserving side, I mean, they played better football, they deserve to win. And really, I mean, the monster Erling Haaland, I mean, just Brazil. And they really played well. I mean, they really was the better side. But I'm just feeling sad for just one name, and that's Neymar. I think all of us, every football fan, just cannot feel and cannot stop themselves from feeling sad for this guy. I mean, Neymar. He's the prince who never got to be the king. I mean, he came along in the era of two kings, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo won the Euro Cup with Portugal in 2016, and Lionel Messi, everybody knows he has won two Copa Americas and he has won the World Cup. I mean, Argentina is the defending champions, so they are the defending champions. Now, what about Neymar? He has won a Copa America. He played so well in the 21 Copa America, especially in the finals against Argentina, but I think it was just written for God had written the script for Messi, and it was just not for Neymar. So Messi won the Copa America that night, even though Neymar played so well. And in the World Cup, think about the previous World Cup, 2022 World Cup, when Argentina won, when Messi won. Even in that World Cup, in the quarterfinals, Neymar scored such a beautiful goal, such an unforgettable goal against Croatia. But then what happened? Brazil again gets knocked out in the tiebreaker. Croatia beats Brazil, and as a Brazil fan who has been following Brazil since 2006, I think it's not new for us. It's not something that we have never expected. We have never expected to see Brazil lose in the knockout stages. Yes, we have. We have expected Brazil. We are actually now used to it. Somebody who has been following the World Cup since 2006. For someone like us, it is quite familiar, quite it's quite familiar. I mean, thing that we have seen before. In 2006, Brazil lost to France, and that was the Brazil team which was the golden generation of Brazil. But they lost to France because Zinedine Zidane, the great Zizou, he just played an unforgettable game. He just proved like why he was the best player of that generation, why he was really the greatest player of that generation, Zizou. And he, from the set piece, I mean, it was his set piece, but then Thierry Henry scored the goal. So Henry scored the goal, and Brazil loses 1-0 to France. Then in 2010, Brazil loses to the Netherlands when it was looking like Brazil was the favorites with Dunga as the coach. There was Kaká, Robinho. Brazil was a great side, right? But then what happened? The Dutch. They just defeated Brazil, even when Brazil was winning 1-0 in the first half. In the second half, they came back with two goals. Snyder scored a goal, and there was an own goal by Brazil. I think it was Felipe Melo who scored the own goal, but then Snyder scored the winning goal, I think. And then in 2014, what happened in 2014 is, as a Brazil fan, I think it's best if you can just forget about it. Yes, Brazil qualified for the semi-finals. Brazil was the host nation, and they qualified for the semi-finals. But then what happened in the semis? I think as a Brazil fan, I think it's best if we can forget about it. A loss like 7-1, even if it was against the the eventual champions. I mean, Germany was able was I mean, Germany went on to win the World Cup. Even if it was against the world champions, but still, I mean, 7-1 in the semifinals in your home country. It's just, but again, the Maracana Stadium, the home, I mean, home of Brazilian football, Maracana Stadium, it has always been like a kind of played that negative or the bad luck charm for Brazil. Like even in 1950 World Cup when Brazil lost to Uruguay in the final in 1950 World Cup. I mean, for all the Brazil fans, they know that how much that 1950 World Cup loss has been like a curse, and I mean, Brazilians could never really forget the 1950 loss to Uruguay in their home country. I mean, in their home. I mean, they were again the host nation, and again the final was played in the Maracanã Stadium. And then again, coming back to 2014, again Brazil was hosting the World Cup in the Maracanã Stadium. What happened? Neymar was already out because ruled out of the World Cup because of the terrible injury he suffered in the quarterfinals against Colombia. But in the semifinals, Germany just hands them a 7-1 humiliating defeat. The only like for consolation, I mean, it was just the one goal that Brazil scored was from Oscar, and for a consolation, I think it's just humiliating. It was just humiliating. It could have been much better if Brazil didn't qualify for the semis. But again, anyway. So coming back to 2018, Brazil again losing the quarterfinals against Belgium. We all know. Again, Brazil was supposed to be the favorites. Every World Cup, Brazil are always the favorites. Obviously, how can you not be the favorites when you have 5 stars? It's the 5 stars. The 5 stars. Yes. How can you not be the favorites when you have 5 stars? You are the only footballing nation, like football playing nation with 5 stars. Of course, you are the favorites. But so again, in the 2022, again Brazil loses to Croatia in the quarterfinals. Every time it is a European nation. Doesn't have to be a big powerhouse, but it is always a European nation that defeats Brazil. I have been seeing this thing like repeating itself from 2006 World Cup. Yes, France was a powerhouse. Again in 2014, Germany was a powerhouse. 2010, Netherlands was a powerhouse. Netherlands reached the finals in 2010. France reached the finals in 2006. In 2014, Germany went on to win the World Cup. 2018, Belgium went on to the made it to the semifinals, but they lost to France. Even though Belgium had their goal generation with Lukaku, Hazard, Kevin De Bruyne, so they had the golden generation of the Belgian football, and they beat Brazil in the quarterfinals, made it to the semifinals, but lost to France, who went on to win the World Cup with Kylian Mbappe. It was just unbelievable. So, and then in 2022, Brazil lost to Croatia, who were the runners-up in 2018 World Cup. Brazil lost to Croatia with Luka Modric, but again, even in that game, I remember it was just, I mean, Brazil was clearly the better side, and especially with Neymar scoring that unbelievable goal. But it was just not meant for him. It was just not meant for Brazil. And in the tiebreakers, Croatia knocks out Brazil, and they went to the semi-final when Argentina beats Croatia, and Argentina goes on to win the World Cup. So it's just not written for Neymar, because I think for a nation like Brazil, you cannot keep Brazil away from winning the World Cup. at some point Brazil will eventually win the World Cup again. Think about it. I mean, uh, the the gap between the 1970 World Cup and the 1994 World Cup was of 24 years. And how many greats of Brazilian football came out and left without winning a World Cup? There was Zico, there was Socrates, legends, legends of Brazilian football. They could not win a World Cup. Now the sad part is, in our like in our generation, it was Neymar who finishes his career. He just announced his retirement, and so he's going to finish his career without a World Cup or even a Copa America victory. I mean, not a single title for Brazil. If you think about it, he won the Confederation Cup with Brazil when Brazil defeated Spain in the final. Neymar was again the best player in the Confederation Cup. Brazil defeated Spain 3-0 in the Confederation Cup final. Neymar was the best player in the tournament. And then in 2016 Olympics, Neymar actually helped Brazil to win their first ever Olympic gold. Neymar did. I mean, with Neymar, Brazil won their first ever Olympic gold. So it's not like he has not won anything with Brazil. He has won the Olympic gold and he has won the Confederation Cup. But the two most important international trophies for a South American footballer is the Copa America, and then there is the World Cup. Like Messi has won. Messi has won the Copa America. Messi has won the Copa America twice, and has reached the Copa America like 4 times, I think, 4 or 5 times, but managed to win the Copa America twice. The last 2 times, Messi won the Copa America. Before that, Argentina had lost to Chile twice and Brazil once in Copa America. I mean, Messi lost the Copa America title to Brazil and then to Chile twice. But eventually, he had to wait long enough to eventually win the Copa America, beating Brazil, and then again, what happened in the last Copa America. So, I mean, Messi could wait. I mean, if you think about it, Lionel Messi is 39 years old. He just turned 39 in this ongoing World Cup 2026. Cristiano Ronaldo is, I think, 41, still playing. But the difference between, what people tend to forget or tend to just avoid the fact that they did not suffer. Cristiano Ronaldo did not suffer like terrible injuries that Neymar had to suffer. Neymar suffered terrible injuries like ACL tear, some injuries that kind of ends so many like careers. Generally players are not able to play football again when you have some ACL tear and something like that. But Neymar, it was only because of Neymar and his passion for playing, his passion to play for the Brazil, to play for his national team was so much that his love and his dedication, his passion was so much that he was able to play again. But obviously, we did not see the prime Neymar. That prime Neymar was long gone. But it's just sad. It's just sad to see someone like Neymar who had so much talent, to just end his career without the two best trophies he could have won for Brazil. And his prince who could never become the king because he was born in the era of two kings, Messi and CR7. But again think about his club titles. His club career. He won the Champions League with Barcelona, but then he left Barcelona. He moved to PSG, and it was like PSG could win so many things with Neymar, but they could not win the Champions League with Neymar. Then came along Messi. Obviously, Mbappe joined PSG for a long. I mean, Mbappe played with Neymar for a long time for PSG, and but they could not win a Champions League together. They reached the Champions League final, but eventually lost to Bayern Munich. But then came the time when they bought Messi, they bought Roma, Sergio Ramos. I mean, it looked like a Galactico 2.0. I mean, like Real Madrid had in the early 2000s, something like that PSG was trying to do. I mean, bringing in Messi, Donnarumma, Sergio Ramos, along with Mbappe and Neymar, but they could not do it. Real Madrid showed them their true colors, and so anyway, PSG lost again with Neymar. So eventually, they did not sign Neymar. Neymar moved to Saudi Arabia, and then what? Like, let go of Donnarumma, Messi, Mbappe, all the stars, all the superstars, and they just bought one manager, Luis Enrique. And with Luis Enrique, they were able to win 2 Champions League back to back. They're the defending champions, 2-time defending champions of the UEFA Champions League. But there is no Neymar. I mean, yes, they have Dembele, but when you talk about superstars, yes, Dembele has won the Ballon d'Or, but when you talk about superstars, can there be anyone bigger than Neymar, Messi, Mbappe? But still, so the modern day football is clearly, when you understand that it's not about stars, it's not about, like, when Brazil made the whole world fall in love with football, like from 1958 with Pele and the Giants of Brazil, when they just made the whole world fall in love with soccer, with football. It was about playing like beautiful football. I mean, just why football is still known to this day as the most beautiful game in the world, because of Brazil, because of the Giants of Brazil. They made the game so beautiful. And then what happened? After 1970, with Pele gone, the new generation of Brazil in the 70s, they kept playing beautiful football. Art, absolute art. What Zico and Socrates used to do for Brazil was absolute art. Then again, they could not win a World Cup. In 1992, they lost to Italy with Paolo Rossi. In 1996, they lost to France in the tiebreaker. France had Michel Platini, but they again lost to France in the tiebreakers in 1986. And anyway, 1986 was meant for Diego Armando Maradona, Argentina. So, but then again in 1990 they lost again, Brazil. But eventually Brazil went on to win in 1994 with Romario, Bebeto, Branco. But that time Brazil was not the same Brazil of Zico and Socrates when they used to play beautiful artistic football. So with Romario and Bebeto, even though they were just legends of Brazilian football, they were greats, but they were not playing the same brand of beautiful samba, jinga style football, samba soccer. But still, they realized the importance to adapt in the modern style of football. They did it, and they won. And what followed was, even in 1998, Brazil managed to make it to the finals. They lost to France with Zidane. And even in 1998 World Cup, Brazil lost to Norway in the group stages though. But Brazil lost. Brazil never had a good record against Norway, never. And it's just history repeated itself. Norway beats Brazil again. But this time the difference is, in the 1998 World Cup, Brazil had the best generation, their best generation. But this time in 2026, Brazil had its worst generation of footballers, just the worst. And Norway, on the other hand, has the best generation of Norwegian footballers, absolutely the best. with Erling Haaland, absolute monster. Every Manchester City fan is talking about absolute monster. Especially even before joining City, what he did for Borussia Dortmund, everybody knows what he's capable of doing. He's just absolute monster, and that's exactly what he displayed in the round of 16. So, and it again, as a Brazil fan, watching and following Brazil, supporting Brazil since 2006, it's not something new. We're actually used to see Brazil in the second, I mean, reaching the stage and losing in the second knockout game. Previously, it was the quarterfinals because they were round of 32. It was after the group stages. There was round of 16, then there was quarterfinals. But this time, one more round was added because there are 48 teams now instead of 6. There are 48 teams now. So there's a round of 2, then there is the round of 16, and there will be quarterfinals, semifinals, as you know, finals then. But again, Brazil gets knocked out in the second knockout game in a World Cup. So it's not something new as a Brazil fan, and I'm quite sure that eventually maybe we have to wait long enough, but it has already been long enough. So we have been waiting for the sixth winning star for Brazil. Instead, what we got is the 6th World Cup in a row when Brazil gets knocked out of World Cup, not winning the World Cup, obviously, 6th time in a row. Instead of winning the 6th star, instead of adding the 6th star in the World Cup tally, they just gets knocked out 6th time in a row. So as a Brazil fan, it's just disappointing. But again, as a Brazil fan, I know the history, that eventually, I'm sure, I mean, you cannot keep a nation who lives and breathes football. You cannot keep a nation like Brazil away from winning the World Cup. They will eventually win the World Cup. But the sad part is Neymar. He's not going to win. He's not going to win. I don't know if he's going to win. I think he's not going to win because obviously he has announced retirement. Unless he comes out of retirement, but looking at his injuries and everything, I don't think he's going to come out of retirement. But if he does, maybe there is a teeny tiny possibility that he may win something with Brazil. But the chances are that that's not going to happen. So Neymar lost his chance. It was his last dance, and so Neymar ends his career without a single Copa America victory for Brazil, and World Cup was just too far away. So now he joins the the list of Brazilian greats with Zico and Socrates, who will always be remembered as the game, greats of Brazilian football, but have not won the World Cup. Zico, Socrates, and now you have Neymar on that same list. And thinking about greats of the game, think about the Italian giants. Paolo Maldini, who is really the greatest defender of all time, arguably though, but according to me, he is the greatest. I mean, when you talk about someone like Sergio Ramos, who mostly dealt with, like, who never avoided, who never thought about like striker or not. He never hesitated. He if he had to foul, he would foul. But for someone like Paolo Maldini, he always avoided fouling striker. What he did was he would just create a pillar in front of the striker, just not be able to penetrate, would just not be able to penetrate. And so Paolo Maldini is really the greatest defender of all time. And then Italy had one of the greatest strikers, Roberto Baggio. I don't know if you have seen the Netflix documentary. Not documentary, it was a biopic of Roberto Baggio. available on Netflix. So it feels sad for players like Roberto Baggio and Paolo Maldini who missed their chance of winning the World Cup. But think about it, and even on why I mentioned the Netflix film, not a documentary again. It was a film. It was a proper biopic on Roberto Baggio, and why I mentioned that film was that because when I watched that film, I realized that how much Baggio tried to play in the 2002 World Cup, who, how much he tried, and how much he trained, like how hard he trained to play for Italy again, and tried to make it to the Italy team in the 2002 FIFA World Cup. Although Italy lost against South Korea, which was again very controversial loss, but there's a lot of controversy about the referee in that game. But anyway, Italy lost in the 2002 World Cup. In 2006, without Maldini, without Baggio, without Maldini, Italy was able to win the World Cup again. So after 1982, coming to 2006, Italy managed to win the World Cup again, and it was their fourth title. So that's what I'm saying. Like for nations, for countries, for teams like Italy, Brazil, winning the World Cup is just a matter of time. Like at some point, it may take long enough. It may take really long. The wait can be just too long, but eventually they will win a World Cup at some point or the other. They will win a World Cup. So I believe that Brazil will definitely win a World Cup, but with Ancelotti, without Ancelotti, Brazil will eventually win a World Cup. But players like players like Maldini, Baggio, Zico, Socrates, and now Neymar. I mean, it was his last dance. A career troubled with injuries and indiscipline. You know how much Brazilians love to party and everything. Although it did not stop Ronaldo Nazario from winning the World Cup, who is arguably the greatest striker of all time and one of the legends of Brazilian football. I mean, I started watching football because of my grandfather, who was a huge fan of Ronaldo, and I became a fan of Brazil because of my grandfather, because he was a big fan of Ronaldo Nazario, the phenomenon. And again, if you look at the career of Ronaldo Nazario, his career was troubled with injuries too, like absolute terrible injuries, knee injuries. He had just terrible knee injuries. The doctor even informed him that if you want to walk, you have to give up on your dream to play again, represent Brazil again in the World Cup, or just play again. You have to stop playing if you want to walk. But then Ronaldo Nazario did not stop. He kept playing, and eventually he won the ultimate dream, the World Cup in 2002, and he eventually won the Golden Boot. Not the best player, but the top scorer, because the best player, the Golden Ball, was won by Oliver Kahn, the great goalkeeper. Although his fatal mistake cost Germany the World Cup, but Oliver Kahn was a great goalkeeper, absolute legend, and he won the Golden Ball, the best player trophy, the best player award in the 2002 World Cup. But Ronaldo Nazario won the top scorer. So a career that was troubled with injuries, and especially when he played for Inter Milan, he just had a great record. With Barcelona, he had a great record. He only played one season for FC Barcelona, and then he moved to Inter Milan. Played for a long time for Inter Milan, and he had a great record for Inter Milan. But then injuries stopped him, and like really slowed him down. And eventually he was getting big, like really fat. But eventually he came back again, played for Brazil again, and then he moved to Real Madrid, joined the Galacticos, and then again from Real Madrid, he went to AC Milan, and he has played under the current Brazilian coach, Carlo Ancelotti. So, but again, for Ronaldo, who is arguably the best Ronaldo, if you know what I mean. So even for Ronaldo Nazario, he came out of like injuries. He managed to deny the medical advices that you have to stop playing if you want to walk again. You know, he did not listen. He played, but he eventually won the World Cup. He won the fifth star for Brazil, and he was also part of the 1994 World Cup team. Although he did not play a single game, but he was still part of the 1994 World Cup team with Romario and Bebeto. But for Brazil, but 2002 World Cup was like really about him. It was like, although there was, but the difference between Ronaldo Nazario and Neymar, I have to say this, the difference was that at least for Ronaldo Nazario, he had the part of the golden generation of Brazilian football. I mean, obviously he was the biggest star in the team. He was the biggest superstar in the team. But then there was great legends of Brazilian football. If you think of it, there was Ronaldinho, there was Rivaldo, there was Roberto Carlos. I mean, who can forget the free kick Roberto Carlos, Gilberto Silva, and I think Kaká was the youngest player in the 2002 World Cup. So, I mean, Brazil, especially in 2002, it was just unbeatable. I mean, they won the World Cup unbeaten. They did not lose a game in the group stages, and obviously went on to win the World Cup. So they stayed unbeaten throughout the World Cup. They're absolutely unbeaten. That was the golden generation of Brazil. So, and again in the 2006 World Cup, they stayed obviously until the quarterfinals against France with Zizou and Thierry Henry. So I think Patrick Evra was also part of that French team. Anyway, Brazil 2002. It was a great redemption for Ronaldo Nazario, because Brazil with Ronaldo Nazario lost the 1998 World Cup final when Ronaldo had a seizure, and there was a lot of controversy in the final, like why he played in the World Cup final, even if he knew that he was not fit enough to play in the World Cup final, but still he played because without Ronaldo Nazario, Brazil would have been a much different side. So he mentioned that if he is fit enough to play, he will play, and eventually he played the 1998 World Cup final, but could not stop France. And that France, the hero was obviously Zinedine Zidane, but the captain of that French side was Didier Deschamps, who is the current coach of the French side, who has been the coach since 2018, obviously. And like Franz Beckenbauer for Germany, Didier Deschamps is another player who has won the World Cup as a captain and as a coach. So great for Didier Deschamps. But for Brazil, keep coming back to Brazil. And so at least for Ronaldo Nazario, he had a great story of redemption with the 2002 World Cup. But what about Neymar? Started with Neymar, ending with Neymar, because it's really about Neymar. Because again, as I mentioned, I believe that eventually I will see, or like the world will see again, when Brazil will become the champions, will win the World Cup. It's just a matter of time, I believe. At some point Brazil will have to win the World Cup, because you cannot keep a nation like Brazil away from the World Cup. They will have to win the World Cup at some time. I don't know when, but I think they have to adapt. They have to adapt in the modern day football, because you know that this football has evolved. I mean, the game has evolved so much that it's not about the beautiful game anymore. Football is not as beautiful as it was before, because previously players used to dominate the game. It was about players like Ronaldo Nazario, Zidane. They used to dominate the game. They used to play with flair. But today's modern day game, the modern day football, the modern day soccer, is about strategy. It's mostly manager oriented, coach oriented. Managers dominate. I mean Pep Guardiola, Carlo Ancelotti. So I mean, it's just to name a few. But managers dominate the game now. In the World Cup, you see Didier Deschamps, Lionel Scaloni for Argentina. So managers dominate the game now. The strategies, the right coaching team, like assistants and everything, sports nutrition, sports science that they bring. I mean, you think about what Hansi Flick has done in Barcelona. He brought this great like fitness team with him that helped Barcelona become a much stronger and a much fitter side. Something similar needs to be done with Brazil as well. They need to come up with new strategies, and I'm sure if Ancelotti stays with Brazil, he will be able to do it. He will be able to make some changes, some important changes for Brazil as well, for Brazil, and to help them get fitter. And because when you watch the game, when I watch the game against, I mean Brazil against Norway, it's not like Brazil did not have the speed. Brazil had the speed. But the problem was just the physical strength. Norwegian players are just they're just so damn big, huge. It's like, I mean, the players just like, I remember like when Punia was trying to take the ball and just went inside the box. The way the defender just pushed him away, he just like he went so far away and he missed the ball. I mean, it's not like Cunha did not have the speed. Matthews Cunha plays for Manchester United, so he just, I mean, he just missed the ball because he just could not fight against the defender because of his physical strength. He just did not have the physical strength to like run past the defender, the Norwegian defender. So obviously, I mean, I think about the physical strength, and I think about I think the golden generation of Brazil with Ronaldo Nazario, Ronaldinho, Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo. I don't think they had this problem. I think they had much better. They had much uh, physical strength. They had much better physical strength. The physical strength to defend themselves, to play against the so-called stronger opponents like the Germans. That's the reason why they were able to defeat Germany in 2002 World Cup. But this time, if you look at players like Neymar, if you look at players like Rafinha, Vinicius, they just look so pale, weak physically. And just not physically, they just don't look that strong compared to especially when you compare them to the Norwegian players, huge. And Erling Haaland is just monster, and you just. So anyway, congratulations to Norway for making to the quarterfinals. It has been the best run so far. I wish they go on to make something like miracle and make their country proud. But I'm not sad for Brazil because it was clearly the worst generation and they did not deserve to win. A better team won. So, but I believe that Brazil will come up with a much stronger side and better strategies, because the game has, and they will eventually adapt to the modern game, modern style of game, when it's about strategies, discipline, and just like a mental game actually. It's not about the beautiful game anymore. They don't have to play the beautiful Jenga Samba style soccer anymore. They have to adapt to the modern day football, and they need to have someone like Ancelotti for a long time who can just help them develop. But so I'm not sad for Brazil, because again, as I mentioned, eventually Brazil will find a way to win the World Cup again, because you cannot keep Brazil, Italy away, teams like nations like Brazil and Italy away from the FIFA World Cup. They will eventually make it to the World Cup, and eventually, like for Italy, they have not even made it to the World Cup. The last two World Cups, they did not make it to the World Cup. So teams like nations like Italy, Brazil, they will win again in the future. But it may not be, in the recent future. It may not be in the recent future. It may be like we may have to really wait a long time, much more. We have to wait maybe much more time, but we have to wait for a long time, a longer time now. We have to wait, but eventually they will find a way to win for Brazil. But I'm just sad for Neymar, because as a giant that he is, I mean, as a player, he just missed his chance. So I'm just sad for him, and for Brazil, that the fans missed their chance, and all the Brazil fans, all the Neymar fans, just to see Neymar win the World Cup, lift the cup, the ultimate dream, the ultimate dream for any footballer. So I'm just sad for Neymar, the last dance. So, but fans will remember him like we remember Zico, we remember Socrates, we will remember Neymar as well. Fans will remember him, Brazil will remember him, football will remember him. So I'm just sad, but it was the last dance for Neymar, because maybe it was just not meant for him. But anyway, all said and done, football will always be my favorite, and may the best team win. May the best team win the World Cup. Beat Spain, beat Argentina, beat France. What if it is Morocco? Or I'd be really happy if a non-European or a non-South American team like Morocco or Egypt, if they can do something like miracle, that would be great. But if it is not Morocco or Egypt, so maybe if it's Norway, what if? So always rooting for the underdogs. So anyway, hopefully the best team will win. Maybe it's for Spain this time. Maybe for Spain this time. Who knows? Lamine Yamal. Goodbye, Neymar. And thank you for the memories. Thank you for making the game so beautiful, and thank you for carrying the responsibilities and the pressure of the Brazilian jersey, of the Brazilian football on your shoulders for such a long time. Thank you for everything. Thank you from a Brazil fan, from a Barcelona fan. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Neymar. Thank you.